Hi there, and thank you for joining me for today's live reading of Blood Sector, a V-Clan novel by Lexi C. Foss, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Welcome to Blood Sector, where the Alpha is king, but his Omega reigns. Kieran, pre-infected era. This is the breach to our security? I asked, circling the Omega kneeling before me, the one who slipped through our barrier. The alarms had sounded shortly after dawn, drawing me from my slumber. I'd expected to find Tig or Lucos infiltrating my territory, or perhaps one of their pet assassins, but a beautiful Omega? That was certainly new. Unless my fellow Alpha Princes had decided on more of a sensual threat than a physical one. Was she armed? I crouched before the female, wanting a better look at her, but her hood hid most of her features from view. Did she give you her name? Quin, a soft voice replied as a pair of midnight irises met mine from inside the black fabric, and yes, she had a knife that she would very much like back. My eyebrow arched. A knife? I glanced at Lorcan. He dipped his chin in confirmation and held out the dagger for my review. I reached for the lackluster metal blade and twirled it through my fingers to test the weight. While practical, it certainly wasn't very exciting. Is there a reason you left the cloak on? The question was for both of my elites, the two men who guarded me with their lives, despite the fact that I could more than handle myself, especially around a petite Omega wolf. She insisted, Cillian replied, and we bow to the demands of intruders now? I countered. Cillian shrugged. She's not an ordinary intruder, my liege. A polite reply, but it lacked an apology. Alas, I suppose he was right. The small Omega didn't really qualify as a threat. Unless she was a Trojan horse of some kind. How fascinating, I marveled. What if she's an Omega assassin? That would be absolutely a unique approach to taking down a fellow royal. If I cared about politics and the territory disputes, I'd employ a similar concept. But I chose to play within my own borders. For now. You crossed my boundary with a measly knife for protection, I mused, growing more intrigued by the second. Not a wise decision, little one. I didn't come here to hurt anyone, she told me, her voice strong and matching the bold glimmer of her alluring gaze. That remains to be seen, I thought, eyeing her curiously as I pocketed her blade. Then why did you come here? For asylum, she replied, pulling the hood back away from her head to reveal her beautiful face. High cheekbones painted pink by the warmth inside my palace walls. Inky irises, pert little nose, full, fuckable lips, a head of dark hair that appeared to flow past her slender shoulders, and a familiar black diamond crescent pendant hanging from her neck. I reached for it. Quin, I murmured, as in Quinn McNamara? The flare of her nostrils and the slight widening of her gaze confirmed my guess, as did the overall familiarity of her features. She was the spitting image of her late mother. I should have recognized that the moment she'd revealed herself, her beauty too profound for just any wolf. Cillian cursed. Lorcan merely narrowed his gaze. I guess you should have removed the hood, I said conversationally as I stood out and held my hand. Stand, princess, and tell me more about this request for asylum. I shouldn't entertain it. Accepting her into my territory would put me in the center of that war. A war that had reached a peak when the McNamara dynasty had fallen, leaving behind an Omega princess and a kingdom many Alphas wished to claim. Blood Sector. It was the heart of the V-Clan world, with its high-tech underground system and secure borders. What had happened to Quinlan's parents was a tragedy. V-Clan wolves were immortal, similar to our vampire cousins, but we weren't indestructible, as Quinlan's parents had discovered after a freak accident involving their jet. Quinlan stood of her own accord, refusing my hand, her head held high and regal, just like the queen she was destined to become. I want to choose my fate. I arched a brow. Oh? That wasn't how any of this worked, but I would indulge her. Enlighten me, little one, on what fate you would like to choose. My mate, she replied. I want to choose my mate. And you want me to help facilitate this choice? I asked her, amused by the prospect. I've stayed out of this war for a reason, little one. I'm content with my own territory and have no interest in battling over Blood Sector. Which is exactly why I'm here. Her dark eyes flickered with some hidden secret, some knowledge she didn't want me to see. I choose you. Very little shocked me in my old age, but those three words left me speechless. Because I had not been expecting to find a sweet little Omega in my territory this morning, let alone one offering herself to me on a platter laden with black diamonds. I'm not a participant, I reminded her, my voice miraculously steady despite the surprise flourishing inside my mind. Is this some sort of trick? A game? A distraction of sorts? I glanced at Lorcan and he nodded, clearly reading the warning from my gaze. He disappeared from the room in a cloud of smoke, likely leaving to check our perimeters again. Because this couldn't be real. That's why I'm here, she told me. You're not out there killing innocents just to prove how big your knot is, and I want this war to end. So I choose you. There were those words again. And if I say no, I wondered aloud, my head tilting a bit to the side. You won't. I won't, I repeated. You may not be fighting this war, but you're still an Alpha Prince, and Blood Sector needs a king. You can't deny that throne. Her overconfident approach made me want to bend her over and teach her a lesson only an Alpha could. However, that would lead to fucking. Which would very likely end in me claiming her, as everything about this female screamed, take me. Not just because of her royal blood, an essence that made my canines ache with desire, but because of her persona. She didn't act like an Omega. She didn't bow or cower or beg. She stood up and made demands, just as she should. Omegas were rare, prized jewels, exquisite diamonds. And this one was the brightest of them all. Is this a trick? I asked her. A trap of some kind? How could I trap you? She asked. That's not an answer, little one. I suppose it's not. She considered me for a moment. Would agreeing to a betrothal bond help prove my sincerity? My eyebrows lifted. You give your life away so willingly? If it means you'll agree to my request for asylum, then yes. But you're not really asking me for asylum, Quinlan. You're asking me to become your mate and take over Blood Sector. Where you'll provide me with asylum within my territory walls, she replied, and save me from the madness this war has created. An escape from your suitors, I translated. That's what you're really asking me for. Yes, an escape from the Alpha Princes, an end to this war. You fancy me a hero? I ran my gaze over her. You come here uninvited and propose a mateship to an Alpha Prince you hardly know, on the basis that he's not participated in the battle for your hand. That's rather bold, Quinlan, and naive. It's an opportunity, she countered, and the risk is worth your rejection. It's about more than a mere rejection, Quinlan. I took an intimidating step toward her, forcing her to look up to meet my gaze. I could take you right now, keep you as mine, and let your sector rot away to nothing. That's a rather large risk, yes? She studied me for a long moment, the first sign of uncertainty touching her striking features. My alternative is to let these Alpha Princes murder needlessly in my name. I would rather put everything I have at risk to end the war than roll over and accept my fate. Or you could choose one of them. They're not worthy, she growled. And I am? That depends on your answer, she replied. Will you accept a betrothal vow? You're asking for a lot more than acceptance, little one. You want me to mate you and take control of Blood Sector. And you seem to think this betrothal will end the war. But some of those alphas won't accept your choice. They'll challenge me. Her eyes flickered again with secrets, ones I could almost taste on my tongue. She's definitely hiding something. You'll revel in their challenge, she told me. You say that like you know me and my motives, I countered, narrowing my gaze. What makes you so confident in your assessment? Tell me I'm wrong, she said instead. She wasn't wrong, which made me want to understand her motives and knowledge even more. Who have you been talking to, little one? Because it seemed apparent that someone had shared details about me and my territory with her. How else had she crossed my boundary lines? It also explained her assurance that I would accept this offer, and her commentary regarding how I would react to a challenge. Rather than reply, she merely smiled. Accept my offer, and maybe I'll tell you. If I accept your offer, you won't have a choice, I replied, because mating her would give me full access to her mind, just as it would grant her uninhibited access to mine, which could be her goal. But a mate bond would put her at a severe disadvantage. It would make her mine. Mine to fuck. Mine to own. Mine to control. A dangerous connection for an Omega. One she shouldn't be so willing to give to any Alpha, let alone one with my penchants. Some ill-informed sod had told this poor girl that I was a hero. She couldn't be more wrong about my proclivities or my desires in life. Did I enjoy a decent challenge? Yes. Would I accept her offer and take the Blood Sector throne? Also yes. But would I be the Prince Charming she desired? The hero she deserved? Absolutely not. I wasn't a white knight. I lived on the edges of darkness. I played with blood. I made deals that benefited me more than anyone else. If this Omega thought to play me at this game, she would lose. Rarity or not, I would destroy her, and I let her see that in my gaze as I stared her down. I am not your hero, I told her with my eyes. I'm a blackguard, a scoundrel, a motherfucking villain. She shivered, but maintained my stare with the confidence of an alpha. You don't scare me, she seemed to be saying. That's a mistake, little one, I told her with a look. This is a dangerous proposition, Princess, one I'm not sure you've fully considered. So I'm going to give you a single chance to retract it. I moved even closer to her, oppressing her with my ancient energy and giving her a glimpse of the power that vibrated beneath my skin. I'm old. I'm an alpha. I will break you if you choose me. One chance, I whispered darkly. Retract the offer, and I'll personally escort you back to your kingdom and leave you to your fate. But this opportunity expires in 60 seconds. Choose wisely. I don't need 60 seconds. I decided my fate the moment I left Blood Sector for your territory. I choose you. My lips curled. An unwise choice, I told her, my gaze falling to her mouth, especially if I find out this is all a ruse of some kind, which I highly suspected it was. But if she wanted to play, I'd indulge her. After all, it had been a long time since something had intrigued me. Might as well engage this little Omega and decipher her secrets. She swallowed, confirming even more that she possessed a hidden purpose. So we have a deal? Rather than reply, I slid my hand beneath the fabric of her cloak to wrap my palm around the back of her neck. How long until your next heat? Her body tensed, her pulse thumping wildly beneath my thumb as I drew a soft circle against her skin. It's a fair question, dear intended, yes? I pressed, to know when you'll accept my knot inside you and my teeth in your pretty throat. She'd come to me with this asinine plan. I'd offer her to escape. She'd naively rejected it, so it only seemed fair to demonstrate what she'd just agreed to. Perhaps she'd beg me to reconsider now. Beg me for that offer she'd so carelessly ignored. 2 months from now, she whispered, her pupils flaring. And how long does it usually last? I wondered aloud, my gaze falling to her luscious mouth again. 30 days, she replied, swallowing once more. I hummed. And do you wish to try my knot prior to our proverbial wedding night, or would you prefer that to be a surprise? She trembled, all signs of her confidence fleeing beneath the power of my grip and the potent energy swirling between us. Now you understand, I thought. Now you know why this was a terrible decision. A surprise, she stammered. All right, I murmured, my thumb applying just enough pressure to her neck to be dangerous. Cillian met my gaze over her head. We'd been together for so long that a single look conveyed my request. He dipped his chin in reverence, then disappeared, giving me a much-needed moment alone with my betrothed. Are you still certain? I asked, my chest brushing hers as I closed the gap between us. Yes, she breathed, surprising me. Her dark eyes met mine. I still choose you. For what purpose, I wonder, I thought, scrutinizing her beautiful face. You may one day regret that choice, I warned her. Not today, she returned, making me grin. Today isn't over yet, Princess, I replied, my grip tightening on her neck as I lifted my opposite wrist to my mouth. Some alphas would make their omegas drink from them in more innovative places, but I was old-fashioned. I enjoyed courtship. I wanted her to beg me for the right reasons, not out of fear or despair. She might have chosen me for nefarious purposes. However, in the end, she would choose me because she craved me more than anyone else. I sank my canines into my flesh, creating a river of blood along my tan skin. Quinlan licked her lips in anticipation. Rather than take blood into my mouth and feed her with my tongue, I merely held my wrist out to her. Make your choice, Princess. If she wanted this betrothal, she would take it herself. I already have, she reminded me, leaning forward to latch onto my vein without a single second of hesitation. One swallow of my blood would engage us in a betrothal bond, a link that could only be broken by Quinlan taking another alpha's knot. And once I returned the favor during her estrus by biting her, our souls would forever be tied together. It was a dangerous first step because it initiated the mating process, allowing me to sense her energy as she absorbed my own, which is why her eager acceptance confirmed what I already knew. She's definitely up to something, I thought, my hand sliding from her nape and upward into her hair to hold her against my wrist as magic warmed the air around us. I'll discover your secrets, little one. Then I'll make you pay in blood while I fuck you to oblivion. She couldn't hear me. Not yet, but she would be able to soon. In 2 months, when I nodded and claimed her. During her heat. Current era. Alas, I'd never experienced Quinlan's delicious slick or indulged in her cries of pleasure, because less than a month later my darling little trickster had vanished into the night without a trace, taking my blood and betrothal with her, leaving me to govern Blood Sector in her absence, while I hunted her across the globe for over 100 fucking years. But now I've found her, my devious runaway bride. Ah, my sweet little wolf, our game of hide-and-seek has officially come to an end. You're mine now, forever and always. Prepare to bleed.